terrorism is a common enemy. It is not the enemy of the U.S. alone. It is not in the interest of the U.S. to confuse an international task and responsibility with its own national responsibility to its people. I believe the error lies in the attempt to clone the Second Gulf War. It cannot be cloned. What happened then is not applicable to the current situation. It is the result of the instigation of the long line of hypocrites who have encouraged the U.S. government to confuse things. They have also encouraged it to be hasty in matters that should be postponed and to postpone what should be dealt with promptly. Any attempt to replicate what happened in the so-called Second Gulf War would be a mistake. What happened then was the occupation of one state by another. That action was not directed against the U.S. The U.S. was not the occupied country. However, Kuwait beseeched the U.S. and the world for help. Therefore, there was a need to involve the whole world morally and politically. There was also a need to involve the UN for reasons of the international law. The premise was that the matter was of concern to the whole world. It was not the responsibility of the U.S. alone. Now the situation is different. The 9/11 attack was directed against the U.S. alone. It has a right to retaliate, and it is capable of retaliation. It is inconceivable for the U.S. to beseech the world for help against Afghanistan or bin Laden. The war against terrorism is a global responsibility. I cannot imagine a responsible state failing to join the war on terrorism, but today we hear about states that agree to join and others that have declined. The reason is the confusion of supporting a single country against its enemies with the global fight against terrorism, our common enemy. Are we against Islam? Are we, Arabs and Muslims, anti-Islam? Are all those who oppose bin Laden against Islam? Are all those who oppose Taliban against Islam? This erroneous view is the result of the confusion of the U.S.'s right to self-defense and the world's duty to combat terrorism. Not all those who oppose bin Laden or the so-called Al-Qaeda are against Islam. Not all those who oppose Taliban are against Islam. I do not even think that we are against bin Laden personally, nor are we against his men who were trained by the forces of the former Soviet Union. Now, are we against Taliban as one of the Afghan factions? What we suppose, or what we oppose, is the heresy that was born in that region, a heresy that is similar to the one that emerged in the time of the guided caliphs and caused 3 of them to be murdered, Omar, Uthman, and Ali. We are the victims of the attacks, assassinations, and terror perpetrated by those groups that sneaked out of our countries to go to Afghanistan as mercenaries. They went there to fight the Soviet army on behalf of others. They did so despite the fact that the Soviet army went into Afghanistan upon the request of its pro-Moscow government. This is exactly what is happening now. Foreign armies are going into the region upon the request of its governments. That was the excuse invoked by bin Laden in his television interview. Those groups came back to wreak havoc in our countries. They went on a rampage of killing all those who crossed their path. Even women and children were not spared. They wanted to advocate a call that subverts the Muslim faith and spreads a wave of destructive behavior. They brand all who do not share their beliefs as apostate. This, despite their indulgence in a manner of cardinal sins. All they want is to go inexorably towards the unknown. They have no doctrine and no well-defined objective. All they know is the insane torture and murder. All they can do is to parrot meaningless words that they do not understand, such as the word taghut. It is a vague word that means worshiping an entity other than God. They use it to describe persons, while it cannot be used in this way in Arabic. They also use the words Islamic Sharia. It is yet another vague word. It is a signifier without a signified. We are against those groups. We will fight them like they fight us. We are stronger than them because we are defending the civilized society and because we are defending the religion against the wave heresy and destruction they have unleashed. This is a necessary and legitimate act of self-defense. We fight them also because we will not accept a new caliphate. We will not submit to the will of a caliph who will rule us by divine command. God has not ordered him to do that. He has no contract with God. We are no longer so naive as to believe that the caliphate is ordained by God. The caliphate is a deviation from the faith. Every deviation is an aberration. Aberrations and those who advocate them are doomed to hell. The caliphate is an aberration, and so is heresy. The prophet never designed a deputy or a successor. We never heard of a deputy prophet, except for Aaron, who was designated by God to help Moses. We oppose heresy and the aberrations of the caliphate and terrorism. Where do bin Laden and the Taliban stand on that? God only knows. but that was a door that opened before the naive, the ignorant, and even the well-intentioned. Though they went to fight as mercenaries, believing they were mujahideen. Now the chickens have come out to roost. Now a similar door may open before the same lost and easily exploited groups. They may become disillusioned with it. Then they will return to their countries and go to the U.S. itself to perpetuate acts of terrorism and insanity. Just like their predecessors at that time, we will reap what they have sown. Exactly like the previous time. I have done my duty and sounded the alarm. We are faced with new, complex, and all-encompassing challenges. Wisdom dictates that we view them from a civilized, human, and objective perspective, free from religious, ethnic, linguistic, and geographical bias. Chauvinist tendencies, outdated patterns, missiles, and bombs are useless in combating those challenges. We must review everything. We must not bet on anything, because all we have at our disposal is nothing.